With the fantasy playoffs right around the corner, we got to make sure our lineups are set early this week because of the holidays, and we got to set them right. These are must-win games here end of the season. Let's talk some wide receivers, starts, and sits. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Better late than never, I guess I can say. Had a little bit of technical difficulties. There's nothing like recording a week's worth of shows to come to find out when you go to edit them that the power cord had come out of your audio mixer and they were all recorded with no audio. Gotta love technology. That's why this video is coming out a little bit late. My apologies for that. But hey, like I said, better late than never. Talking wide receivers today. It is a holiday week. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. We have 3 games on Thanksgiving, trying to get the information out quicker now because it is a little bit later. So I'm going to fly through all of these matchups, all the wide receivers, give you the quick analysis, try to help you make those decisions. Not going to, exaggerate on the start or the sit portion of it. Just trying to help you guys, make it a little bit easier if you have a few choices to decide between. So without waiting any longer, let's get into all the games here for Week 12. All right, first game on Thanksgiving, we have the Bears and the Lions. Starting off with the Bears now, and things are a little bit different. No Mitch Magic this week. No Mitch Trubisky. What does that do to the wide receivers of the Chicago Bears? To me, it really limits their upside. I wasn't high on Allen Robinson anyway with Mitch Trubisky. Now that he's not playing, I'm really not that interested in any of these wide receivers this week. Allen Robinson, Anthony Miller, Taylor Gabriel all have limited upside right now. If I had to take one to try to trust, it would be Anthony Miller. He's playing absolutely great football right now. Probably the most consistent wide receiver of the bunch. He's had a touchdown 3 out of the last 4 games. Double-digit points 4 out of his last 6 games. He's definitely somebody who's been involved in this offense. He's a red zone threat. But with no Mitch Magic, this could kind of get a little bit iffy. If you have better options here for Week 12, I'm shying away from all the Chicago Bears wide receivers. It's just too risky. With a different quarterback under center and the fantasy playoffs more than likely on the line for a lot of you guys, I don't know if this is the smartest risk to take in Week 12. For the Lions, you have Kenny Golladay. That's really about it. Maybe if you're in a super deep league, Bruce Ellington may be an option, but for most leagues, probably not. Kenny Golladay is somebody who's put up huge numbers at times this season, including last week against the Carolina Panthers, 8 catches for 113 yards and a touchdown. And then he faced this same Chicago Bears defense 2 weeks ago in Week 10, had 6 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown there also. No Marvin Jones this week. No Kerryon Johnson this week. I expect a heavy dose of Kenny Golladay, and he's getting a decent matchup. It's a lot easier to throw on the Bears than it is to run on the Bears. The last 2 weeks, they've given up 3 receiving touchdowns to opposing wide receivers, giving up on average close to 39 points a week are the Chicago Bears to opposing wide receivers. Great matchup. They're going to have to throw the ball. Really like some Kenny Golladay this week. He's definitely somebody who I would look to have in my lineup if possible in Week 12. Game 2 on Thanksgiving is going to be the Washington Redskins at the Dallas Cowboys. And we'll start off with Washington, and we're not going to waste a whole lot of time here. We now have Colt McCoy under center. Not that Alex Smith was really lighting it up and making these guys all fantasy relevant in the first place. But going forward, I actually have all these guys. I took the whole team. They're all a sit of the week for me. I don't trust that offense. The offensive line is banged up. Maurice Harris is somebody who came out, and a lot of people were like, man, this guy's going to get just peppered with volume. Because back in Week 9, he had 10 receptions. Since then, the last 2 games, only 6 combined. Josh Doxson, really home run dependent, touchdown dependent going forward. Trey Quinn is a name that's come up here recently. He had 4 catches for 49 yards last week. Okay, I mean, there's not a whole lot of upside in this offense to begin with, and then they lose Alex Smith, go to Colt McCoy, a banged-up offensive line. There's nothing that I want to do with any of these wide receivers with the fantasy football playoffs almost on the line this week. On the Cowboys side of the football, we have Amari Cooper and Cole Beasley, who we'll talk about here for a second. Now, Amari Cooper, he's going to be a hashtag going forward. Never Amari Cooper. I mean, this guy... If you are not irritated with Amari Cooper at this point, there's some type of, there's something wrong. Because as much talent as he has, and I've seen all the clips, I mentioned this last week, him running great routes, getting huge yards of separation during those routes. You don't get fantasy points for yards of separation. You get them for receptions, yardage, and touchdowns. That's a novel idea here, and Amari Cooper is highly inconsistent. Everybody loved the matchup last week against the Atlanta Falcons. 3 for 36. Thanks, Amari. It's just not something that you can count on every single week. You have high expectations. You see decent matchups, and he's just not consistent with it. I'm not starting Amari Cooper. Actually, I'm not ever owning Amari Cooper, to be completely honest, much less thinking about putting him in a lineup somewhere. He has the upside. He just doesn't have the consistency. I don't trust him. He's another one of my sits of the week. Now, for Cole Beasley, he's somebody who maybe in 12-team leagues or larger is a decent flex play in PPR leagues. He's somebody who's going to see a large amount of volume. Five receptions for 51 yards last week. In the past 3 weeks now, he's had a total of 12 receptions, averaging right there around that 4 to 5 receptions a game. Not a huge ceiling, but a solid play in deeper leagues as a flex play if need be. Maybe to fill in for somebody who's on a bye week. Maybe you had Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, something like that. Sammy Watkins, Tyreek, one of these guys who is not going to be playing this week. Cole Beasley is a decent flex play in those deeper leagues. Outside of that, I'm not trusting anybody on Dallas. The last Thanksgiving day is going to be the Falcons at the Saints. This game could see a lot of offense in it, going back and forth. Starting off with the Atlanta Falcons, you have Julio Jones, who's an obvious must-start every single week. I sat here about 3 weeks ago and said, hey, the Julio touchdowns are going to start this week. And then I came on the week after and said the floodgates are about to open. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing touchdowns on a regular occurrence for Julio Jones. Since then, 3 straight games with touchdowns, 3 straight games over 20 fantasy points in PPR leagues. He now has 5 straight 100-yard receiving games. Obvious must start. Calvin Ridley is somebody who I really like this week. This is a great matchup against the New Orleans Saints. Why? Because the Saints put up so many points that you have to throw the ball in order to try to stay in the game with them. The Saints are giving up on average 45 points to opposing wide receivers, almost dead last in the league. They did not allow much to the Philadelphia Eagles last week, but the Philadelphia Eagles offense has been struggling at times. I really expect the Atlanta Falcons, who have been able to put up some offensive numbers, to not really stay in the game, because I do expect New Orleans to win this game, but I expect them to be a little bit more involved throwing the ball. They can't seem to get Tevin Coleman running on the ground right. Definitely something where if you have Calvin Ridley, I'm looking at him as a solid flex play this week with high upside in a game that they're going to have to throw a lot. Mohamed Sanu, more of a real safe play. If you have a lot of guys on bye, maybe you're in a deeper league, Mohamed Sanu is a safe flex play. Not a very high ceiling, but he's somebody who's going to get you, right around that 8 to 10 fantasy points a week. Nice, solid, safe play. But outside of that, they're all going to be decent options in a game where there could be a lot of offense this week. Now, on the Saints side of the football, you have Michael Thomas and Traquan Smith. Traquan Smith coming off of that absolutely huge game last week. 10 receptions, 157 yards, and a touchdown. Been kind of banged up throughout the week. Limited at practice. Sounds like he's possibly going to play. Michael Thomas, obvious must start. I don't care who he's playing, where he's playing, what holiday it is, anything like that. Michael Thomas is going to start. He's currently the number 2 fantasy wide receiver in all of football, and it's a great matchup going up against the Atlanta Falcons, who have given up on average 39 points per game. They've given up a receiving touchdown to an opposing wide receiver every single game this year, with the exceptions of week 1 and week 11. Definitely a team you can throw on. One of the best offenses in football with the Saints. Fire up both these guys at will. On to Sunday, we have the Cleveland Browns at the Cincinnati Bengals. For the Browns, you got Jarvis Landry, and a lot of his owners are a little bit disappointed with him right now. He only has 2 touchdowns on the season, 2 games worth he's had over 100 yards receiving, only 1 game with double-digit receptions. We know he's not really the touchdown type of guy, but we expected more in the reception category. His game before the bye week, 2 catches for 22 yards in a favorable matchup against the Atlanta Falcons at home. I fully expect this Browns offense to come out of the bye week, though, and try to build some momentum. They're not in the playoff hunt. They're not in the Super Bowl hunt, but they're definitely starting to build some momentum and try to carry that over into the offseason and next season. It is a much improved Browns team, but yes, it's still the Cleveland Browns. I do expect better offense going forward. Jarvis Landry is actually going to be one of my starts of the week this week. Coming out of the bye week, I expect them to get him involved early in the game. And they're going up against the Cincinnati Bengals, who have allowed like a bajillion and 36 yards to everybody who wants them the past few weeks. They can't stop teams on the ground. They can't stop teams through the air. I expect a lot of offense in this game from the Cleveland Browns, and I love Jarvis Landry here in Week 12. For the Bengals, we have possibly A.J. Green and Tyler Boyd. This is a decent matchup for these guys, going up against the 23rd ranked defense of the Cleveland Browns, giving up on average almost 38 points a game. Their last game before the bye week against the Atlanta Falcons, they gave up 210 yards receiving to their wide receivers, along with 1 touchdown. Definitely a decent matchup. It's still questionable whether A.J. Green plays or not. It's something where we need to continue to watch the practice reports. Make sure you're paying attention to whether he's going to play, whether he's going to be limited. He may end up being on a snap count. I'm really worried about playing and starting A.J. Green, even if he does play. Are they going to scale him back a little bit? Is he going to get less offensive snaps? Those are all worries, and with the fantasy playoffs on the line, it's really hard to take that chance. Now, if A.J. Green plays, I do like Tyler Boyd a lot more. A.J. is going to command defensive attention regardless if he's on a snap count or not. If he's out there, I really like the upside of Tyler Boyd, somebody who has really not really taken advantage of this time with A.J. Green out. His last game, last week against Baltimore, 4 catches for 71 yards. Hasn't had a touchdown since week 8. Not a whole lot of, explosiveness out of Tyler Boyd as of late. I do like him this week, and I like him even more if A.J. Green is playing. Like I said, he'll be able to slide back to that number 2 role and have a better chance at a higher upside, a higher ceiling style game, in a game where we could see a lot of back and forth scoring and offense against these Bengals and Browns. Niners and Bucks are next, and for the Niners, we have Pierre Garçon and Marquise Goodwin. Now, Pierre Garçon, he's somebody been dealing with a knee injury, been limited at practice. Yes, they're coming off the bye, but I really don't trust him yet, even though he did have some production in the one game he's played with Nick Mullins so far, which is back in Week 9, 3 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown. Marquise Goodwin, though, is somebody who could have some sneaky value, possibly a decent DFS play this week. He does have double-digit fantasy points in PPR leagues 3 out of his last 5 games, and now they get a great matchup going up against the 30th ranked defense against opposing wide receivers in the Tampa Bay Bucks, giving up on average over 40 points a game. We know that the Bucks are going to be good for a few turnovers. That usually adds the offensive snaps that the teams playing against them actually get, which boosts the upside of some of these wide receivers. They have allowed a receiving touchdown to an opposing wide receiver every single week this year, at least one. It's a great matchup. Not saying that Marquise Goodwin is a slam dunk must start, but he's somebody who has some sneaky high upside. If you're looking for somebody as a bye week fill-in, maybe even in a larger league, he's somebody who has decent value here for Week 12. For the Bucks, we now have Jameis Winston back under center. He was there, and then he wasn't, then he was there, and then whatever. It's a revolving door of quarterbacks. The one consistent is, though, they're going to throw interceptions. It's like what they do in Tampa. They're great at it. And the problem is going forward, we know now Mike Evans has that solid weekly must-start value with Jameis Winston under center. He's locked onto him for years. We know that's going to stay the same. The problem is, how much value does a Deshaun Jackson, Adam Humphries, Chris Godwin now have? All those guys become boom or bust. There's no consistency with Jameis Winston under center, and they all worry me here in the later stages of the season. Right now, even though they're great options, outside of Mike Evans and possibly Adam Humphries, who seems to be the next safest option, just based off of the volume that he gets alone, are the only 2 guys I would consider here in the Tampa Bay passing offense. And it's a decent matchup. The San Francisco 49ers are a middle-of-the-road team right now, 14th against opposing wide receivers. However, their game against the New York Giants before their bye week, they did give up 3 receiving touchdowns to opposing wide receivers. Definitely a team that can be had through the air, and it's a decent matchup. Like I said, though, Mike Evans is a for sure must-start with Jameis Winston. But after that, Adam Humphries may be the only other guy I would risk rolling the dice on. In what could be one of the ugliest matchups of wide receivers this week, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Buffalo Bills. So for the Jags, I like their wide receivers talent-wise. What I don't like is Blake Bortles and his inability to get said receivers involved. They have the potential. They have the ability. They don't have the quarterback to do it. And if Buffalo does anything really well, it's play in the secondary and against opposing wide receivers. One of the top teams in the league, allowing on average 28 points per game. They haven't given up a receiving touchdown, though, since Week 7 to the Indianapolis Colts. Definitely a solid secondary in Buffalo. With the poor quarterback play of Blake Bortles, I'm really worried, and I wouldn't personally start anybody in the Jacksonville wide receiver group this week. There's just too much on the line. On the other side of the ball, you have the Buffalo Bills going up against the tough defense of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are the number 2 ranked team against opposing wide receivers. They've only given up 1 touchdown to an opposing wide receiver all the way back since week 7. This is definitely another solid defense who's struggled at time giving up yardage. They're kind of a bend but don't break defense. They've given up yardage at the time. The problem is, it's the Buffalo Bills. And as good as they are on defense, that's as bad as they are on offense. We're making the home stretch here for the fantasy playoffs. Please, please, please don't tell me that you have to start Zay Jones or Kelvin Benjamin, because if you do, I don't think you're going to the playoffs. Raiders and Ravens are next, and for the Raiders we have Seth Roberts and Marcel Aitman. Yeah, I really hope you don't have to start them either. I don't care who they're playing against. There's not a whole lot of upside right there. And they're not going to be in any of my fantasy lineups. Hopefully they're not in yours either. Not much different on the Ravens side of the football either. At least they have a few more weapons. I mean, they have Willie Snead and John Brown and #Never Crabtree. But they're just not going to be overly involved with Lamar Jackson under center. There's not a whole lot of huge upside. If anybody is a safer play there, it's still Willie Snead. Last week, he had 5 receptions, 51 yards, 10 fantasy points in PPR leagues. He's had double digits every single week with the exception of 2 weeks so far this season. It's somewhat of an easy matchup. They're middle of the road. I mean, the Oakland Raiders, for as bad as a lot of people make them sound, including myself, they're not horrible. They're ranked 16th against opposing wide receivers. However, last week against Arizona, they gave up 3 receiving touchdowns, a total of 6 receiving touchdowns in the last 3 games. But Lamar Jackson is going to limit this upside due to the amount of times that they're going to run the ball in Baltimore. The clock is going to be continually running. They're going to run a lot, and that just limits the upsides of all the wide receivers. Personally, I would rather not trust any of them. If I had no choice, Willie Snead would be the one guy as a flex play that I would put in there and just hope for that safe floor. Somewhere between 8 to 12 fantasy points is what I can expect from Willie Snead. All the other guys are all boom or bust. Seahawks and Panthers are next, and for the Seahawks, you have Doug Baldwin and Tyler Lockett. I was actually looking forward to throwing Doug Baldwin back into a couple lineups because I know I hadn't given up on him yet, and he had a decent week last week. 7 receptions, 52 yards, and a touchdown. I was starting to look forward to some production from Doug Baldwin, and then Doug Baldwin does what Doug Baldwin does and pops up on the injury report again. Did not practice on Wednesday with a groin injury. This is something that really worries me going into the weekend, that he didn't practice at all. I need to see him get a full practice in by Friday in order to somewhat trust him in my lineup on Sunday. Tyler Lockett, still more of a safer option in that offense. He does have 7 touchdowns on the year. It's a decent matchup against the Carolina Panthers defense, who's given up on average 36 points to opposing wide receivers. Over the past 3 games, they've given up 5 receiving touchdowns to those opposing wide receivers. It's a great matchup, but as of right now, I feel safer with Tyler Lockett than I do Doug Baldwin. For the Panthers, we have #NeverFunchess, DJ Moore, and maybe Curtis Samuel as a viable option. Now, obviously, we're not starting Devin Funchess. He's popped up on the injury report with a back issue. I don't know why. The issue is really with his hands because he can't ever catch anything. He's a definite must-sit on a weekly basis. DJ Moore had a huge game last week with 7 catches, 157 yards, and a touchdown, but it was against the Detroit Lions, so you have to limit those expectations a little bit. But now they get a decent matchup, the 18th ranked defense in the Seattle Seahawks. However, Seattle hasn't given up a receiving touchdown to an opposing wide receiver the last 2 games. This is definitely something where DJ Moore can excel in this game. If they're going to get the volume, especially if Devin Funchess doesn't play, or maybe he's even more limited than it sounds like right now, DJ Moore could get a huge uptick in volume, which really gives him a huge uptick in production, and the potential is there for DJ Moore to have a huge game. I love DJ Moore this week. Curtis Samuel is somebody who's somewhat come on strong, but he's really not getting that volume yet. Yes, last week against the Lions, 5 catches for 55 yards and a touchdown. By far, probably one of his best games so far of the year, or of his career, I guess you could say. I'm not overly comfortable starting him yet. DJ Moore, as of right now, is really the only wide receiver that I have any interest in here for Week 12. Patriots and Jets are next, and for the Patriots, we got Julian Edelman and Josh Gordon. Now, coming out of the bye week, I fully expect the New England Patriots to start getting this offense going. It happens almost every year. Second half of the season, New England puts together a string of wins, trying to make that playoff push and take some momentum into the playoffs. And I fully expect that again. As long as Tom Brady's under center and Bill Belichick is coaching that team, it's going to happen. Another given is Julian Edelman is going to be one of the top targets of Tom Brady. Gronk comes back. He'll command a little bit of the defensive attention. That will leave Julian Edelman with more one-on-one coverage. And it's something where he's excelled so far this year. Coming off one of his best games, 9 receptions for 104 yards 2 weeks ago. He's had double-digit fantasy points every single game since he's been back from suspension. He is a very, very safe play. One of my starts of the week this week, especially since it's a decent matchup going up against the Jets. They're the 27th ranked defense against opposing wide receivers, giving up on average over 40 points per game. 2 weeks ago before their bye, their last game, 13 receptions allowed for 234 yards and a touchdown to opposing wide receivers, and that was against the Bills. I definitely like the New England offense in this game. Josh Gordon, to me, takes a slight hit with Rob Gronkowski playing, but he's still a solid option. Also this week, I believe, somebody who's been more involved in this offense. Their game before the bye week against Tennessee, a tough defense, which New England did not play well. He still had 4 catches for 81 yards, double-digit points 3 out of his last 4 games. He's also a solid start. I just think that Julian Edelman may be a little safer, and he's one of my starts of the week. For the Jets, you got Quincy Enunwa, Jermaine Kearse, Rashard Matthews. None of these guys who I trust this point in the season. Still don't know if Sam Darnold plays. It's starting to lean towards probably not, which would put Josh McCown under center, who did not look good 2 weeks ago before their bye week. None of these guys have been consistent. None of them have really produced great numbers. Nobody that you can really count on. Too late in the season for me to risk it with anybody here for the Jets. Giants and Eagles are next. For the Giants, you have Odell Beckham, who's an obvious must-start every single week. I mean, the guy has been playing absolutely great. Hasn't really seen the volume the past couple weeks, but he's getting the touchdowns. It's making up for it. Right now, the number 8 fantasy wide receiver in PPR leagues. Sterling Shepard's volume has somewhat taken a hit. It really hasn't gone anywhere other than to Odell and Saquon Barkley. Evan Ingram's not overly involved in this offense. However, Sterling Shepard is somebody who on a weekly basis has that upside to go out there and get you close to 10 receptions and 100 yards every single week. He has that kind of upside. And now he gets a great matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles defense, which was just absolutely obliterated by the New Orleans Saints last week, where they gave up 285 yards and 3 receiving touchdowns to the Saints wide receivers. This is a great matchup for the New York Giants. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. However, Saquon Barkley is going to be involved. Outside of Odell Beckham, though, Sterling Shepard is more of a flex play only. He does have that high upside, and if you're replacing somebody on a bye week or somebody who's injured, he's a solid play with a great matchup again here in Week 12. On the other side for the Eagles, you have Alshon Jeffrey, Golden Tate, and Nelson Aguilar, all who were somewhat disappointing last week. Tate absolutely burned me. I had Tate as one of my starts of the week last week, and he was the highest scoring receiver for the Eagles. The problem was he didn't do a whole lot. Golden Tate ended the day with a whole 5 receptions for 48 yards. That's not very good. Even though it's 10 fantasy points in PPR leagues, it's still not something that you're very excited about. Alshon Jeffrey is going to be the favorite target of Carson Wentz. Golden Tate is starting to assert himself a little bit more in this offense. Nelson Aguilar is really now the 4th option if you include Zach Ertz. This is something where this offense has different pieces. The problem is they haven't been able to put it together and really be consistent with any of these wide receivers. As of right now, I still think Alshon Jeffrey may be slightly the safest play. Golden Tate is not far behind, though. He may see more volume. He just may not see the yardage as of yet. It is a tougher matchup. I mean, the New York Giants are the 8th-ranked team against opposing wide receivers, giving up on average 32 points a game. And last week to the Tampa Bay Bucks, they gave up 268 yards and 2 touchdowns. However, before that, they hadn't allowed a receiving touchdown since week 7. Definitely a tougher defense for the Giants. And these guys all have some question marks in Philadelphia, and that offense needs to get going. I would start Alshon Jeffrey, and Golden Tate's not far behind. More of a flex play at best with some upside, but this offense has to start showing some consistency before we can really say that these guys are all must-starts every single week again. Cardinals and Chargers are next. For the Cardinals, you have Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk. Now, Fitzgerald's going to be one of my starts of the week. Didn't have a huge amount of volume last week, only had 2 receptions. But he made the most of them, and he had 2 touchdowns. 2 catches, 23 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's somebody who now has double-digit fantasy points 4 straight weeks, and is going to be highly involved in this offense. He's really benefited from the change of offensive coordinator to Byron Leftwich. Christian Kirk is a little bit more boom or bust. He may not see huge volume, but he has that big play potential. He showed it last week with, I believe it was like a 59-yard screen pass that he took all the way. 3 catches, 77 yards, and a touchdown. He now has touchdowns 2 out of his last 3 games. He's also a solid play. Somewhat of a tougher matchup for him this week, though, against the Los Angeles Chargers, who have not allowed a receiving touchdown since week 9, and that was against the Seattle Seahawks. Before that, they hadn't allowed one since week 5. So 1 touchdown over their last 5 games allowed to opposing wide receivers. This is a very much improved defense. Joey Bosa is starting to get involved there. This is something where outside of Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, and David Johnson, the Cardinals don't have a whole lot of other options. And for that reason alone, I feel safe 100% with Larry Fitzgerald. One of my starts of the week, like I said. Christian Kirk, more of a deeper league flex option only. And outside of that, there's nobody else really in this offense from a wide receiver perspective that I would trust in week 12. For the Chargers, you have Keenan Allen, and then you have Tyrell and Mike Williams, both of who have been too inconsistent, just not seeing the volume to really be successful on a weekly basis. Tyrell Williams is on the injury report right now. That's something we need to pay attention to. If he sits, I do like the possibility of Mike Williams having a better game, so make sure you pay attention to the injury reports. Keenan Allen is more than likely going to draw coverage from Patrick Peterson, which is going to limit his upside, but it's still Keenan Allen. He's been playing great. Over 20 fantasy points as an average the last 3 games. He's had touchdowns 2 straight weeks. He's going to see a lot of volume, and because of that, it makes him still a solid play here for the week. You just need to temper expectations slightly. Going up against Patrick Peterson, like I said, the Arizona Cardinals are the 11th ranked defense against opposing wide receivers. Not a bad group over there in Arizona. Keenan Allen, though, is still somebody that probably should be in your lineup on a weekly basis. Dolphins and Colts are next, and we'll start off with the Dolphins. We'll talk about Danny Amendola, Bigfoot, Devontae Parker, and Kenny Stills. Now, Devontae Parker, obviously not somebody I'm going to trust weekly. I don't care if he's healthy or not, even though he's on the injury report right now. Kenny Stills been way too boom or bust this season. Danny Amendola is really the only safe play in this wide receiver group. However, right now, he's also limited in practice with a hamstring injury. That's something to pay attention to. Sounds like Ryan Tannehill is going to come back this week. Just another question mark in this offense. How is he going to play in his first game back in a few weeks? Danny Amendola may be the only guy that I take a chance on, as long as he's a full go by the weekend. More of just a flex play only in deeper leagues. Not somebody who has a ridiculously high ceiling, but in PPR leagues, he has a decent floor. He's going to be involved in the offense, averaging right around 5 to 6 receptions a week here, all the way since week 6. So he's been somewhat of a safer option, but outside of him, I'm not trusting anybody in Miami, especially now that Ryan Tannehill is coming back after having a few weeks off. Now for the Colts, we have T.Y. Hilton, who was one of my starts of the week last week, and the guy absolutely went crazy. 9 receptions, 155 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Put up 36 fantasy points in PPR leagues. That's now double-digit points 3 out of the last 4 weeks. And you're starting to see something here with the Indianapolis Colts. This defense is playing better. The offense is getting going. It's one of the best offensive lines in football. Andrew Luck hasn't even been touched in weeks in that backfield. They're playing great in Indianapolis, and they're not getting a whole lot of credit for it. It's not one of these nationally recognized teams that you see a lot on national TV. But the Colts are playing great. They have a decent matchup here going up against the Miami Dolphins. T.Y. Hilton is playing great. He's starting to get more acclimated and involved in this offense after missing a few weeks with injury. The Dolphins, on average, are giving up close to about 32 points a game to opposing wide receivers. They've given up 5 touchdown receptions in the last 3 weeks. Definitely something where if you have T.Y. Hilton, I have no issues throwing him in my lineup. I got huge upside almost every week with T.Y. Hilton, being that the way that Andrew Luck is just playing so well. Steelers and Broncos are next, and for the Steelers, you have Antonio Brown and Juju. Both of these guys are basically must-starts almost every single week. Antonio Brown right now currently the number 5 ranked fantasy wide receiver. Juju's down at 13. Both of them averaging over 17 points a game in PPR leagues. It's a decent matchup going up against the Denver Broncos, who give up on average 34 points a game. Both these guys in this offense that really features them both well. Both of them are must-starts almost here again in Week 12. For the Broncos, you have Emmanuel Sanders and Courtland Sutton. Now, Emmanuel Sanders has started to decline here just a little bit. He started off the season hot, 7 straight weeks in double digits. His last 3 games, though, he's failed to get more than 57 yards receiving, no touchdowns in those games, and it's starting to worry a little bit of people here. Maybe that he peaked a little bit too early in the season, and maybe the sell high time has come and gone for Emmanuel Sanders. He's still the number 14 ranked wide receiver in fantasy football and PPR leagues. and it's somewhat of an easy matchup. They are a middle-of-the-road defense in Pittsburgh, giving up on average 34 points per game. They haven't allowed a receiving touchdown in their past 3 games, though, to an opposing wide receiver, so it really limits the upside of Emmanuel Sanders. Courtland Sutton is somebody who has that big play potential. Not too much of a touchdown threat. He only has 2 of them so far in the year, has yet to get more than 78 yards receiving. However, that did come last week against the Los Angeles Chargers, where he had 3 receptions for 78 yards. He has huge upside, not so much the volume yet, though, to be somebody that you can count on every single week. Both of these guys I'm a little bit down on this week. They are going to have to throw the ball a lot there to keep pace with the Steelers. I just don't know if they can put up the points, enough points to make them fantasy relevant. Emmanuel Sanders a little bit safer than Courtland Sutton, in my opinion. Packers and Vikings are next, and for the Packers, you have Davante Adams, must start every single week. He's number 4 fantasy wide receiver. Definitely somebody who doesn't really matter about the matchup. He's had double-digit fantasy points every single game so far this year. Now, MVS is somebody who greatly disappointed us last week, myself included. I expected a lot more than his 1 catch for 8 yards. But what does that mean going forward? I don't think that the 5 games prior to that were just, by luck. This guy is somebody who's going to be involved in this offense. I think Aaron Jones has kind of eaten into some of the MVS production because Aaron Jones has been so effective on the ground and through the air. However, this game against the Minnesota Vikings could be a little bit different. It's a tough run defense. It's a tough defense overall in Minnesota. Right now, they're the 4th-ranked team against opposing wide receivers. They've only given up 1 receiving touchdown to an opposing wide receiver since week 4. Definitely an elite defense in Minnesota that's playing great right now. MVS is somebody who has some sneaky upside, though. The majority of that defensive attention is going to be going towards Davante Adams and containing Aaron Jones. MVS is somebody who could have a great bounce-back week, more of a flex play only, maybe even in 12-team leagues or larger. I know he burned a lot of people last week, but I highly doubt that he's just no longer involved in this game plan. He has some decent value in week 12. For the Vikings, you have Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, both almost must-starts every single week, both ranked inside the top 12 as far as fantasy wide receivers go. Definitely a decent matchup going up against the 22nd ranked defense of the Green Bay Packers, giving up on average 38 points a game. If you have Thielen, if you have Diggs, more than likely they've just been locked in your lineup all season long anyway. Monday Night Football, you have the Titans at the Texans, and for the Titans, you really only have Corey Davis. The problem is you may not have Marcus Mariota, and if you don't, I really don't like Corey Davis. He's somebody who's shown flashes at times. Heck, 2 weeks ago against the New England Patriots, he had 7 receptions for 125 yards and a touchdown. The problem is last week against the Colts, 2 receptions for 30. Which Corey Davis are you going to get? If Blaine Gabbert's under center, that greatly diminishes his upside. Corey Davis is going to be one of my sits for the week. It's a tough matchup anyway. The Houston Texans are the 5th-ranked defense against opposing wide receivers. They haven't allowed a receiving touchdown to an opposing wide receiver since week 6. Definitely a great defense in Houston that's very underrated at this time. And being the fact that we might not even have Marcus Mariota under center, I'm going to sit Corey Davis. I don't like him at all here in week 12. On the other side for the Texans, you have DeAndre Hopkins, Demaryius Thomas, and Kiki Do You Love Me QT. Now let me take this opportunity to tell Demaryius Thomas thank you for nothing. I really like the potential upside he had last week. A lot of people like the potential upside of Demaryius Thomas, and how did he repay us? Similar to Golden Tate, actually worse than Golden Tate did. Why? Because Demaryius Thomas only had 1 target, and he didn't even catch that. He had a whole lot of nothing last week. And more than anything, what last week's game showed me is that even though Kiki had missed some games with a hamstring injury, the second he came back in, he has Deshaun Watson's attention. Now, obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is a must-start every single week. The dude is absolutely crazy talented. Kiki QT, though, is the number 2 option in this offense. Despite the name value of Demaryius Thomas, Kiki's the guy with the next most value. 5 catches for 77 yards. Definitely a PPR option. Somebody who's definitely a solid flex play this week if you had one of those big-name receivers on bye. Definitely like Kiki going forward. He's obviously involved in this game plan, and he's somebody that Deshaun Watson looks to a lot. Definitely like some Kiki Do You Love Me here in week 12. All right, those were all the wide receiver matchups here for the week. Hopefully that was able to help you set your lineups a little bit. Really want to wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving out there. I'm very thankful for this community, very thankful for all you guys watching. It's been a great season so far. We want to finish it strong. A lot of people making that push towards the playoffs and fantasy championships, trying to win as many as we possibly can this year as a community. But like I said, I greatly appreciate you guys' support. Make sure you tune in Saturday afternoon, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time will be the live show, our live Q&A. Don't miss out on that. Really appreciate you guys. Like I said, though, have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you later. Have a good one.